This is Jane Low, and I'm at the OT-ISAC Summit here in Singapore. And with me today, I'm very pleased and very privileged to have Mr. Stephen Sim, who is the chair of the OT-ISAC Executive Committee, who will be sharing with us on some of the highlights of some of these OT cybersecurity developments here and conversations here at this summit. So thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us in this podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So before we dive into some of these sort of frequently asked questions when it comes to OT-ISAC, which is information sharing and analysis, I think our members, or rather our audience, will be quite interested to understand what is, the role of the executive committee in this mission to share information and cyber threat intelligence when it comes to OT. So if you could share with us what is the sort of the role behind the executive committee?
Sure. The executive committee is made up of a group of volunteers, myself included. We provide advisory and steer for OT-ISAC, the board itself, the OT-ISAC staff, to drive some of these initiatives to communicate best practices, threat intelligence, conduct tabletop exercises, and so forth. So initiatives that can benefit the whole ecosystem. And this OT-ISAC is formed from the first Singapore OT Cybersecurity Master Plan 2019. It continues to be a second key thrust of the new Singapore OT Cybersecurity Master Plan 2024. So what the Executive Committee endeavors to do is to further elevate our contributions to the ecosystem by steering in the right direction. So we have representatives from Temasek, we have representatives from GovTech, who comes together, we collectively co-create the initiatives to drive the OT ecosystem community forward in terms of the level of awareness and the level of education.
You talk about the members coming together to drive some of these initiatives, and I think I want to come to the first sort of frequently asked questions when it comes to information sharing, right? And I think many of our audience will ask, it's a tough balance between gaining some of these benefits to have a better situational awareness when it comes to cyber threat intelligence, to build the community, like you say, to balance that with some of the concerns around the confidentiality and the sensitivity of the information that's shared. So can you tell us a bit about some of the initiatives and the measures that OT-ISAC has to address these concerns? I think one that our audience is familiar with is the traffic light protocol, but I'm sure there's other measures as well.
Yes, definitely. I think one thing that is common across ISACs, and ISACs have been around for decades, right? And they are still striving and thriving because members do share threat intelligence, information about some of the indicators of compromise, information of some of the, for instance, ransomware attacks, the tactics, techniques, and procedures that they have encountered with one another. And how do they do it without having this information attributed to them? They do this by using the platform that OT-ISAC supports, relies on, which is a safe harbor protocol-based spyware. In fact, many of the ISACs are relying on this platform. It's a safe harbor because whatever that you share on this platform is anonymized. So that it's in fact the most important thing. The traffic light protocol is there, yes, it helps to restrict the access, whether it's white, green, or amber, whether you can share outside your organization and so forth. But ultimately, what gives the most assurance is the anonymity behind what you have shared, because it's processed at the back end and then developed into insights that share the community. There is no specific attribution. So there are specific guidelines in terms of if it occurs for, let's say, more than 3 members in the community itself in that same locality, then you can share about that locality. Otherwise, it's easy to pinpoint who it is. If this is the only operator in that industry for that particular locality, then we will not share the locality because you can easily infer who it is. So it's also a numbers scheme. If there are multiple players in that industry, then it is a lot easier to maintain that anonymity. And we provide that kind of guidance as well. Yeah.
Right. Is this in some ways related to or associated with what they refer to as the STIX or the
TAXII.
TAXII, that's right.
Yeah, the STIX and TAXII protocols are protocols that are used to, in fact, very often to ingest the indicators of compromise. One form of threat intelligence that is with the indicators of compromise, which are like URLs, malicious URLs, malware hashes, right, file hashes, so that you can actually deploy them in your systems, in your firewalls, in your web security gateways, in your anti-malware products. You load in the hashes, and you are protected from those malware that other organizations have encountered. So in fact, OT-ISAC, we have a malware information sharing platform, MISP. It's an open source product, but we actually put that in place where members can actually deploy the MISP and through the API calls that communicates through STIX and TAXII, upload indicators of compromise automatically, then for it to be downloaded by other organizations so that they are tightly protected. So with the community, everyone becomes a node, a sensor that is part of the overall early warning system. So the more people join this community, the better the early warning system. If an attacker chooses to attack an organization A first, the organization A, who has this MISP, would have automatically uploaded the indicators of compromise after they have done the investigation and so forth. This indicator of compromise that is then ingested by organization B, C, and D. So if the hacker tries to attack B, C, and D after compromising organization A, they are already protected by the time they were hit. Yeah, this is the power of the collective coming together to share threat intelligence.
Right, that's fascinating. So that's a very evidence of the benefit of sharing, isn't it? Building this resilient community when it comes to cyber security in OT environments. I think the other frequently asked question when it comes to information sharing is the nature of cybersecurity and cyber threats is very cross-border. So you're talking about information that's obviously crossing various jurisdictions, and while we are sharing, there's also a requirement in some ways to comply with some of these data sovereignty, data protection requirements in the different jurisdictions. What are some of the concerns that the members are expressing? Or is there, some interesting sort of measures or ways that members are, addressing these concerns?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So a lot of members can be multinational corporations. Yes, some of them may be critical information infrastructure in Singapore itself, or they may not be. But they are essentially, many of them are multinational corporations where they have business units based in other parts of the world. Yeah. So the sharing of threat intelligence, typically there is definitely mindfulness, depending on where the source of the intel is. As long as you don't put in the attribution, I think it's still fine, right? You don't allude to where this intelligence comes from, because even at the different business units in their own locality, they could be receiving threat intelligence from other sources within that locality itself. And when they share back to their MNC, multinational, through their MNC, they are actually not just sharing within the locality, but sharing to the rest of their business units in other localities. Yeah. So that is, in most cases, that is perfectly fine, and that is the right thing to do, because ultimately, cybersecurity is really borderless. The threat actors, most of the time, unless it's geopolitically driven, do not care which locality you are in. They are focusing very much on financial gains. Ransomware attackers Of course, ransomware attackers, if they are from a nation state, they will avoid attacking their own self, right? But typically, they don't really differentiate between who you are, especially ransomware as a service. Yeah, they just want to get the ransom being paid to them. So that sharing across borders really help to elevate the cybersecurity across the entire globe to make us more defensible in a time where we still talk about cyber warfare as asymmetric.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you brought up this point about ransomware, and I was going to ask you this question as well, because it's also a frequently asked question, right? Especially, well, it's not really limited just to OT, although we do hear over the last few years ransomware attacks on OT environments. And earlier you talked about OT-ISAC was established, I believe 5 years ago in 2019, and since then, obviously, we don't have just the plain vanilla ransomware. We have double extortion, triple extortion, and extortion. So it has really morphed into very sophisticated cyber threat. What do you see as over the last 5 years since OT-ISAC has been established? What do you see? How do you see the conversations kind of evolved into addressing to pay or not to pay?
Okay, I think this is also a very good question. The standard response and the right thing to do, as much as possible, is not to pay. Yeah, and I believe most of the regulators out there, whether it's in the States or elsewhere, would discourage paying ransom. But of course, in the news, and the statistics have shown that folks are still paying up ransom. I mean, Colonial Pipeline, they still paid, right? So it has become a business decision. If it costs an X amount that is not overly expensive for you to be able to get back your operations, because you are losing multiple times that X amount in your operations, and just paying a small amount could potentially let you get all the data back and let you resume availability of your services. I think it's an attractive option for the private operators out there. But they have to bear in mind, I think many of these ransomware actors are nation state. So sometimes you are running afoul of the law if you actually pay the ransom, because it is as if you are supporting terrorists, abetting criminals. So have to be mindful about that, and it's important to have a really good discussion with the legal teams on this aspect. Yeah, because if you pay the ransom, it also depends on whether your cyber insurance company will pay. There's a lot of trickiness in terms of this decision making, predominantly because of a few factors. One, ransom actors, if you pay, there's no guarantee that they're going to provide the decryption tool. And even if they provide a decryption tool, because you pay, you are like the hand that never stops giving. So they may come to you again to extort more, or they can share this information with other ransomware gangs. Hey, this is a gold mine. Go in. And hey, they have cyber insurance. Yeah. So the conundrum about cyber insurance also, hackers, sometimes they attack cyber insurance companies to get hold of the clientele list so that they can attack the clientele. And they do that because they know these are the folks who have the cyber insurer backing to pay the ransom. You don't want to attack someone who cannot pay, right? So that also brings complexity into this question. So triple extortion, if non-sensitive data has been leaked, and if your operations, you have a sound business continuity plan, you have sound disaster recovery and proper backups that you can restore from, then I don't see a good reason to pay, because you can recover your operations quickly enough from your backups. And after all, the data that has been leaked out are non-sensitive. So why run that risk?
The important thing, like you say, is to have a resilient, plan, right?
Yes.
To have an incident response plan that you have tested and simulated under various scenarios, one of which is including ransomware as well, I guess.
Yes, and a crisis management plan as well, which involves top-level discussions, because it is not a decision at the incident response level. It sometimes goes higher up to the crisis management level, where the board may also needs to be involved in this discussion, and the legal teams needs to be involved as well. So the resilience really is about exactly like I mentioned, having the incident response adequately drilled beyond tabletop, as well as having your business continuity plan tabletop, and making sure that it is robust and can sustain a prolonged period of digital downtime. Because in an incident, I think earlier we had this discussion about hackers, ransomware actors, especially nation state. They are moving from disruption to destruction. And we have seen what happened in NotPetya and so forth, really wiping. No amount of ransom is going to get that data back. So having that resilience plan is truly what matters, because your IT may not work, your OT may not work. It may take a prolonged period of time for them to come back online, and you need a robust business continuity plan to sustain your business.
Yeah, there's one benefit, well, amidst many other benefits of joining a ISAC is, you learn from each other as well, isn't it? Like lessons that your peers have encountered when it comes to ransomware. One last question, if I may. I'm just conscious of the time. The theme of this year's summit is sort of centered around AI. And, AI is a big topic for a couple of years now. So how do you see, some of the members adopting AI or leveraging the AI tools in information sharing? Have you seen any sort of interesting, use cases that you can share with us?
That's a good question as well. So based on my observation, quite a number of members are in the journey to explore how generative AI can help in OT cybersecurity. That's one. And also how to deploy cybersecurity to protect against adversarial AI attacks. So why do I say that? It's because AI, in fact, traditional AI has been there for quite a fair amount of time. In fact, even before this hype about ChatGPT and OpenAI, some of the cybersecurity products out there were already saying that they have AI built in. I mean, IBM Watson and some of the other solutions have already have this in terms of log monitoring, ingesting logs, in terms of threat hunting, behavioral analytics, whether it's EDRs, UEBAs, or NBAs. The moment they have behavioral analytics, there's an element of AI included. But what really tipped the scales was generative AI. Because with generative AI, from a security perspective, it can help in terms of in the triage process to help speed up the analysis. You still need the man or the woman to be involved in checking the output in certain cases. So some queries may be more prone to hallucinations, while others you can just rely on it without really doing any additional checks. So the triage process in incident response, where you can find out, for instance, you can ask questions like, is this a malicious indicator of compromise? That can be done, yeah. So it helps to speed up the incident response, and why is that important? Because the faster you detect, the faster you can contain. And the faster you can contain, you can disrupt the attacker from moving across the cyber kill chain into your crown jewels. So most of the OT attacks are coming from IT. If you can detect, even if an endpoint is compromised, you can detect fast to disrupt the lateral movement of the attacker before it even reaches the gate of your OT network. That is winning the war itself, right? So that helps from a adoption of AI in cybersecurity. But I'm also mindful of overpromise in terms of Gen AI. It requires a lot of testing, because I do have I've heard from members who have encountered vendors who have shared that everything is machine speed. But again, if you have qualifiers to say that, but you have the but over there that you must check all the output, then how can it be machine speed, right? The moment you have human in the loop, it cannot be machine. So I think we are in the, like the Gartner Hype curve. We are in the slight deep into the trial of disillusion because there was a lot of promises, and then ultimately we will stabilize into sustainable development and expectation, a full alignment of expectations of what AI can promises can bring to cybersecurity. And on the adversarial AI part, definitely incorporating all the required practices into, like, for instance, red teaming. Red teaming is no longer just the traditional red teaming. You need to red team large language models.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to perform all the prompt injection, manipulation, data poisoning, and so forth. So the whole 9 yards has to put in place. And security by design also needs to take into consideration. You need to look at OWASP, top 10 for LM, and make sure that if you are deploying a model, a large language model, you put in all the defenses in place, make sure that you are able to validate the data that goes in, make sure that you are protected against prompt injection and so forth. All those 9 yards have to be put in place. And the VAPT and red teaming have to come in place to validate all these are in place.
I think it's a huge, fascinating topic, and perhaps we can really drill down into various applications and use cases next time when we chat. But thank you so much for your time today, Stephen.
No problem. Thank you for having me.